Good afternoon, everyone. We'll wait for some time, couple of minutes for more people to join, and then we'll kick off today's session. Just give a minute more. I think we have about 45 who have joined, so we just probably give everybody a minute more to start. So while we wait for more people to join, good afternoon once again. Welcome to the final session in 2023 of the Wednesday webinar. We have a very interesting topic today for discussing, and we internally deliberated a lot, like how do we close 2023, and I think the entire idea was that we keep consumer at the center stage and reflect on what's been the trend with the Indian consumer, what has changed, what has remained the same. And we have an interesting panel out here who would be sharing with us their observations on from a consumer perspective, from a research agency's perspective, from an advertiser's perspective. So multiple perspectives on how the Indian consumer per se has evolved or remained the same. Before we get into the topic in detail, and before we even introduce the speaker, I'll spend a couple of minutes talking about Wednesday webinar. So we are in the season 6 of MRSI's Wednesday webinar, largely an information exchange platform where people like us who are part of this beautiful industry, who try to decode the consumer every second, day in and day out, a platform for us to be up to date with what's happening out there in terms of maybe consumer behavior understanding, technological advances, what else is happening out there in the industry. A platform where experts come on board, share their views on what they are researching, what are the learnings they are having. A platform where it's not only a mix of panel discussions, a platform where people, individuals come on board and share presentations which about the work they have done in the past. A platform where people have won awards in multiple forums and they come and share their experience about what they wrote, what was the experience, kind of thing. So multiple information which is exchanged, which enriches our learning experience as stakeholders of this larger industry per se. Yeah. Diana, you can move to the next slide. Yeah. So it's a difficult task in terms of how do you put this together month on month in terms of what needs to be discussed, what kind of experts do we bring on board, and that's made possible by the webinar committee, which is led by Amitabh Mishra, who heads insights and analytics for Dr. Reddy's in India. Amitabh is also part of the management committee in MRSI, and steers way for us in terms of the kind of interesting mix we should have every month on Wednesday webinars. Then we have Sundar Muthuraman, CEO of Essel Ventures. You would be very familiar with Sundar in the multiple webinars which we have done, and a lot of help for us at the back end as well in terms of discussing and converging on point of views on the kind of topics we come up with. We have our Gen Z in our team, Mukul Gautam, who's the VP and Chief of Capacity Building, Purple Audacity, somebody who's really passionate about this particular event and comes up with a lot of interesting ideas on what we can put forward as content for the audience who's out listening to here. I'll be co-hosting the session today and moderating with the speakers. I had insights for Entropic globally. Before I introduce the speakers, wanted to spend a few minutes on MRSI. MRSI was established in 1988 with a unique focus on bringing together the providers and buyers of research and insights, largely created to create awareness about the industry among public and with government, also to promote and establish professional standards. Also, I think the larger point is providing a platform for professionals where we can come and exchange our views, ideas. Also, a platform where we recognize contributions and performance out there. Yeah. So the speakers today, an interesting panel with divergent experience and expertise. We have Anshu Yardi from TAM Media, Vice President of Business Partnership and Communication. Anshu will be talking to us and sharing with us views on how television advertising per se has evolved and what are the trends which we see out there. Then we have Ashish Karnad, Executive Vice President, Media and Digital from Hansa Research Group. Ashish will be sharing with us on how celebrity endorsement has evolved and what are we seeing as the dynamics which is happening there. Then we have Prem Narayan, Chief Strategy Officer, Ogilvy India. Prem will be delving and talking to us about how the beauty as a category and is evolving and what's the change we see there. And then we move on to Shivanjali Phatak, who's associate partner Quantum Solutions, Consumer Solutions India, who will be talking about how India is evolving and what's the culture change which is unfolding. Just last 10 seconds on certain ground rules. While the speakers are sharing their observations with us, you can feel free to post the questions for the speakers. You won't be able to unmute and ask questions to the speakers per se. Basis how the time runs, we'll see whether we can have some of those questions as and when the speaker is done with their session. In case we think that we are running out of time, we'll have them answered towards the end of the session, or we'll mail you back with the responses of the speaker's view on the questions which you have posted. So without wasting any more time, I'll hand this over to Shivanjali, who will be sharing with us how India is evolving and what's the culture code which is unfolding. Over to you, Shivanjali.
Thank you, Jay, so much. Thank you, everybody, for joining on a Wednesday afternoon. So I'll be taking you through some interesting trends, themes, culture code that we see unfolding in India today, and that's why we've called it as India Evolving. We can move to the next slide. So I want to take you through 5 sub-themes under the India Evolving narrative. The first one being boldly Indian, which means that how we as Indians and our evolution into a more self-assured expression of our Indian identity. The second is architect of my life, which is all about building authorship and also about building a lot of self-belief in oneself. The next is appetite for realism. So it's not just fantasy anymore. There is a big shift from fantasy to realism, not just black, not just white, but also acceptance of a lot of gray. The fourth one is battle against effort and the quest for effortless living, right? So it's all about how can I minimize my struggle, maximize my benefit, and not live life with the old template that was essentially maybe I was conditioned into. And the fifth one is chasing quality of life. So I've realized that life is tough, it's competitive, but it's also important to reprioritize it, right? So how today we as Indians or consumers are also reprioritizing life. So let's move to the first one, which is very close to all our hearts. And this is, I think, a big sentiment that we see, not just a sentiment, but a code about boldly Indian, right? Which is about today India or Indians prefer to see ourselves not as belonging to a third world country or the citizens of the whole world, but more as a member of a global superpower, right? So it's almost like we are taking custodianship of this image of India, and we are really fierce about it. So, for example, if when Jay Shankar, our external affairs minister, when he gives it back at a global platform, there is a sense of pride we all sort of experience, right? And therefore, we fiercely sort of also protesting or anything that sort of hinders that image that we have. What we also see as part of boldly Indian is today it's not just the Hindi or the Punjabi that's celebrated at a global level. Even hyper local identities are becoming a showcase factor. So case in point being RRR, right? Which was a Telugu film that went on global stage. While it had a pan-India presence, it was still sort of looked at very from a very regional sort of influence angle, right? So therefore, if you see, if today the big sentiment or the code is boldly Indian, we have to understand that we need to play to that sentiments, brands and businesses. Second, how we talk to India today or how do we represent us, our local is very important and our local identity. And also understanding that India is not just one. There are many Indias within India, and we need to design for local also very differently within India today. We can move to the next one. Yeah, the other one is architect of my life. Today, if you see, and this is more skewed towards women, right, where she doesn't really see herself as a victim or a passive receiver, but sees herself as critical architect of her own life. And there is this thing about developing and demonstrating an unshakable belief in self. And this she's realized that the moment I show that my true self to the world, they love me more, right? So it's so much about not just about being more, but actually doing more. It is not just about knowing more, but having a point of view and a perspective. Today she's not just a back end supporter, she wants to be a frontline enabler. It is not just about, oh, I'm admired for all the things that I do. She wants to actually step out and inspire others to do more and be more. And it's not just about who I am, but definitely who I want to be. And more importantly, there is a big desire to show her unapologetic self. So if you see some of the examples we have given, these are examples of people who are unapologetic about who they are, even though possibly some section of the society thinks otherwise, right? And therefore, how we depict the woman today, how do we talk to her, needs to be rethought, right? As a brand, she's already a brand, so we need to help her in her journey to create her own brand. Unstereotyping definitely is a big theme today, and I think it's just scratched the surface. I think there's a lot to be done, even in terms of how we communicate to her and how things are shown even in media as well, right? We can move to the next one. Yeah, appetite for realism, again, a little more skewed towards what consumers are watching and what they are liking in that. I think today consumers are definitely adopting a more realistic lens to view to the world. They are appreciating authenticity and they're really learning from the real journey, right? So whether it's good, whether it's bad, or whether it's ugly, there's always something to learn from. And this whole image of something being very, very perfect is becoming less and less believable, right? So the prioritizing is more about, can I gain some perspective? Can I build a point of view? Can I understand the world around me much better? Because there is beauty in really understanding the real and the authentic, right? And therefore the real and the authentic is definitely more relatable. To give you a simple example, even TV serials, which like mega TV serials, Anupama, they are adopting more realness because they want to relate. And today consumers come back and say, Arey, what they're showing is not even real. That doesn't really happen in life, right? I want to see something that I can learn from. So that there are therefore, we have to understand that when we are building content or when we are sort of creating any content, there's nothing called as perfect. There are no perfect characters. People are want to celebrate real. They want to see protagonists that are flawed, and they want to look at things that help them deal with change, because change is something which is constant, and they don't want to run away from it. We can move to the next one. Yeah, the next one I have is battle against effort and the quest for effortless living. This started when COVID started, right? And COVID, what it did, it forced us to change the way we live and also work, right? And when we changed our way, we discovered new ways of living. And what happened because of that is we created habits, we discovered this habit, and we realized, hey, it makes my life very easy. And then it continues. I've continued it because it saves my time. Physically and my mental effort is reduced. Obviously, it's also great from a value point of view, and it minimizes my struggle. So today, all of us or the consumers also realize that there's no glory in telling people that, oh, how much effort I take, right? And top of that, today, while we are in this journey of making life effortless, there are many things around us that are creating new benchmarks of effortlessness every single day. To give you a very simple example, we were speaking to some consumers, and this is quote unquote her. She says that, when I tell my husband to bring something from outside, he will take a lot of time. Swiggy Instamart will bring it in 10 minutes. The trust that I have in that app is much more than what I can have on my husband bringing it in, right? So that's the kind of trust, that's the kind of effortlessness we are really sort of expecting. And today, if something doesn't come to me now, we are really trying, they have to get their things sorted, right? And therefore, I think as brands and businesses, really appealing to this consumer's need of effortless living, I think is very, very important. We can move to the next one. The last one I have for all of us is chasing quality of life. And then let's understand, we started with saying that we are boldly Indian, we want to progress, we want to succeed, and that is non-negotiation. It's non-negotiable, right? Because only if I succeed, I can really lead a lifestyle that is effortless. I can lead a lifestyle that is full of gains. However, there is a realization that this relentless pursuit of success could create some or cause some irreparable damage, right? And therefore, suddenly we've realized that I need to figure out a balance. I need to chase a life which is more quality driven. I need to look at more sustainable, meaning more practical, more conscious, and reprioritize things that matter to be the most, right? So I know Monday to Friday, I work, 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 work. It's a rat race. But then weekends are sacrosanct. There is an eventification of family vacation as well. There is a big prioritization towards health and wellness. We're trying to simplify life as much as possible so that we can focus on what matters us the most. And there's no real guilt in indulging in me time, right? Therefore, it's very important that today there is a big shift in value orientation. People prefer brands that are more value oriented, that provide transformative experience, and that also champion sort of maybe conscious and slow living, right? So those were the five sort of sub themes I had in terms of how India is evolving and what are some of the codes that are unfolding.
Thanks, Shivanjali. Very interesting set of points. I think, I was just noting down your start from, the pride factor to the point of view to, I think then it takes to the next level of, going beyond themselves and, inspiring others. Then I think you talked about, I think one starting point was, the desire to do what they want and being really, unapologetic about it. I think that stands out in terms of what we see in individuals today, in terms of whatever they want to do, even if it is workspace or whether it is about being a support at home and playing a role in family in a certain way. And I think some other evolved things were about the whole focus on having less physical and mental effort, and when there are things around you which can enable you to do things much more efficient. It may be faster, it may take time, that doesn't matter, but I think efficient. From that point of view, just wanted to hear from you, how do you think this is going to probably maybe influence the kind of brands which people want to be associated with or buy as we move forward? Because I think you talked about that example of Swiggy Instamart. It's come from nowhere, right? I think the kirana shops are still existing, probably walk away, but there is somebody who's redefining the role. So how do you see maybe if you can even pick a couple of categories and say that what kind of brands would now the future forward people want to be associated with?
I think all kinds of brands, right? I think when we say the quest for effortless living, it also means, like, for example, the kind of experiences that brands are building. It also means it's not just about the effort, physical effort, but it's also about the mental effort, right? So for example, possibly in the future, today maybe making a choice is so difficult for me. If brands help me, so for example, in financial sector, right, one of the most difficult thing for any consumer to do is to make a choice, right? And therefore aggregators, players like those actually come very handy to help consumer make a more effortless choice. So I think this sort of trend or code could go into multiple ways, right? About making choices, not just physical but mental. Today stress is like a lingering word, right? How do you take that out of consumer? I think that's also could be an interesting way to look at this code.
Okay, yeah. We have a few more questions, but I think in the interest of time, probably I'll move on to the next speaker, and probably we can take this, when we are done with all the speakers. Moving on, I think we see some of these points. Probably we'll see whether it really comes out maybe in the beauty category as well. So we have Prem, who will be walking us through the changing phase of beauty in today's context in terms of how people are interacting with this category. Over to you, Prem, to start this off.
Yeah, thanks, Jayesh, and thanks, Shivanjali. I think there are some points that get corroborated in this study. So fundamentally, this was basically us feeling we are dumb. So we went and actually said, how is there was a feeling that the culture of many categories are being driven by social platforms today. And we actually collaborated with Meta to see if we could look at just what's happening on Instagram and understand, are there lots of things that as advertisers, marketers, we are perhaps late to catch or not catching. And that was the study, and we looked at about 200 odd, 30, 40 odd influencers to just look at it. Go to the next slide. I think the fundamental point was, this was a provocation, which was social platforms are the front door of culture today, especially when it comes to beauty. And a lot of conversations and what's trending on beauty seems to be first manifesting itself on social platforms, and then maybe is And this is not necessarily only about digital advertising, as much as what can brands learn about the culture of categories from platforms. And there are some which are very, really big, like beauty, food. And we just looked at beauty for us to understand what's the implication, and perhaps it has wider relevance when we look at it across categories. Maybe you can do this for food, fashion, and so on and so forth. That was the intent. Yeah, the next slide, please. Out a few trends, and the first one is close to what Shivanjali was saying, which is, I think beauty is surely moving, at least on platforms, from airbrush to authentic. And then keep all this in mind and look at the kind of advertising that we see on television to what's organically being done on platforms by either influencers or people themselves. So I think this whole business of looking perfect is much lesser there. It's more about cherishing imperfections. And a lot of beauty insecurities are being blown away by these influencers. And this dramatic beauty transformations, from overnight you went from A to Z, is all going away. People are talking about the time it takes and it's not easy and all of that stuff. So this whole airbrush to authentic is one narrative. Next slide, please. The second one is linked, but I thought this was an interesting point, which is, I think there is a whole community that is talking about shared vulnerability. I think that's creating, which is why I think people are trusting influencers, because people are putting themselves out there and talking about their frailties, their vulnerabilities. And when somebody shares vulnerabilities, they build trust. And hence you want to listen to them and their point of view rather than somebody who seems to know it all. And the struggles of those people are actually creating deeper connects. And hence influencers are becoming bigger beauty brands, and brands that are doing it well are getting there. It's much more human, much more empathetic. And the world of hyperboles is perhaps dead. So I think the first was authentic. This is linked to that, which is, I think there's a lot more of shared vulnerability. I would hugely encourage brands to think about it as to how we communicate in our tonality and what we say with consumers, rather than, I am this diva who's perfect and listen to me now. I think that's gone. Let's go to the next one, please. I think this is big. You touched upon it in some way, Shivanjali, which is, I think beauty was a lot about just looking good. I think it's surely moving to loving self. You hashtag self-love and all of that is very big there. And beauty is becoming less about confirmation of one's place in the status quo and more of an affirmation of oneself and self-love, right? It's not about serenading society, it's about serenading the soul. It's about what you feel. And I read this term in some client consumer research, I don't know which one, but I really loved it, which is the last point Shivanjali made, which is about indulgence. And there is a feeling of hedonistic well-being. I indulge because it feeds my soul, it feeds my person. So indulgence is not ridden with guilt anymore in some of these categories. It is what I need to be. It is, to use Jayesh's word, unapologetically embracing certain things because it makes me feel good. It's important for my mental health, my emotional health, as much as it is about my physical health or looks. To that point, I think mirrors now celebrate beauty, no longer only police it, right? So it's not about looking at the mirror and saying, oh, what's wrong with me, as much as what's good about me. So that's the third one. So authenticity, shared vulnerability, self-love. Let's move to the next one, please. This has lots of opportunities. I think beauty was stuck in salons and in front of the mirror. I think beauty is coming out of the bathroom, certainly from the mirror, and to more now. And there's non-appointment beauty now. And if you see some of these videos, these are people doing up beauty in the car, where they are. So Instagram is replete with get ready with me. And it could be to go to the gym, to the airport, to brunch meeting. So it's not about shadi pe jana hai to acha dikhna hai ya bada interview ke jana hai. It's transcended everything, and everything has its own look. And this also leads to beauty not always having the luxury of a mirror or a changing room. It's about things, you'll think makeup in a car, right? And that's a huge opportunity for brands which can think beauty, life, convenience, right? I mean, can I have a set of beauty products that are very friendly to doing makeup in a moving environment or in the middle of a meeting, quick, faster, convenient, easy, huge opportunity for brands to play with. We saw that coming up in a lot of the influencer stuff that we saw. Yeah, the next slide, please. Yeah, and this is actually true, meaning while there is a lot of conversations on trolls, the opposite is also true. I think Instagram has a huge sisterhood of beauty. This whole thing about, beauty is about one person trying to outdo the other and pull the other one down. Classic Indian mentality, I think, is very cliched thinking. I think today women are actively helping other women look better. And I think that's a huge opportunity for brands. And when I've spoken to people and I talk about what happens in the changing rooms and offices, if they're heading out for a party, everybody is helping each other look great more than pull each other down. And it's building a huge community on social platforms, support each other and believe everyone can be beautiful, right? So everybody's trying to enhance each other's beauty rather than pull them down. And they're laying everything bare by creators. There are no beauty secrets anymore, right? It's not like, oh, I'm trying to hide it because I want to be the one to look at great. So sisterhood is another big thing that seems to be coming out. Yeah, the next slide, please. And I think there's surely a fashionization of beauty. So these are all things that you would have heard: Barbie, core, and soft girl, and clean girl, and slow beauty, and all of those were trends that were floating around. And I think there's a lot of spectacle, right? There's a little OTT, there is a little bit of show and tell. There's a lot of glamour that's entering beauty almost in a fashion sense. There is a ramp, the reel is a ramp almost every day in some way or form. You can see brands collaborating with creators and all of that. And it's following the path of fashion. So we will see trends of the season, almost like how fashion brands behave. Beauty brands are going towards fashion, and you'll have to be dynamic, agile, in and out. The perpetuity of one product being, there will always be the basics that are timeless and which will always be there. There'll as much be brands that may ride short-term trends for a while, get out, and something else might come on. So you'll have to think fashion when you think beauty today. It's not enough just to think beauty and basics anymore. So that's the other one we picked up. Yeah, next slide, please. Okay, this is an interesting one. This came from the world of dupes. You can buy Lancome and they'll say same ingredient now available at X price. Why the hell are you wasting money? Big watch out for brands. So I think earlier expertise, ingredient and all were like, mumbo jumbo. People said something in today, niacinamide and all these are very common parlance, and that's all gotten democratized by people just talking about it. And I didn't know any of these words. It's completely demystified on Instagram, and literally the back of pack is now front of reels. People are splitting every ingredient, saying what each one does, what's the benefit of each, what product has what will it do. And I'd read many years back, and now it's coming true in a piece on the future of marketing in an HBR article, where we said we'll have to write to algorithms. And it fundamentally said that, let's say X beauty product or X toothpaste vis-a-vis Y, and an algorithm would actually tell you, you know what, dude, the ingredients in both are the same, but you seem to be paying 40% more for that than this. So why the hell should you be buying that at all? Now that's a reality. It's happening through influencers. It will soon be AI and algorithms. So I think it puts some level of thing on marketeers to be true to what they deliver. Otherwise, you're going to get caught out. The other thing is, of course, how to use these platforms more intelligently. You may build emotional connect through your video asset, but you may be using influencers and a lot of the other stuff to build credibility, what's in the ingredient and the product. So back of pack is now front of reels, literally. Yeah. Anything more? Yeah, and this, I kept noticing it all the time, and I was in a room talking to about 15 women, and what came up big time was just the joy in the conversation when we were talking beauty. Beauty is consumed. It's almost like how people consume sport. Now beauty is consumed by a lot of people, both men and women, as entertainment, right? They're just watching it for the fun of it. They're getting entertained by beauty. And brands that, make this look like one Bhayankar problem solution thing have very short windows. I'm consuming half an hour to 45 minutes of beauty every day on these platforms. And the last thing I don't want to only, of course, when I have a problem, I need to enter and listen to it and get out, but I also need to be entertained. Like I kept wondering, there's a lot of humor that you see on beauty on platforms. I don't see brands leveraging it in any way. So these are breaking codes of the industry. And typically beauty advertising and communication was stuck in a certain world. I think that's all changing, and it will have to change fundamentally, because beauty is entertainment, and that's equally important for a lot of us to recognize. And of course, there is all these main characters and all of that going on. So these were 8 or 9 that we picked up. Authenticity, shared vulnerability, back of pack is now front of reels, entertainment, and some of the stuff that I touched upon, the being on the go beauty, and a lot of those. These just came out of just one study that we did, and they were interesting for us to look at, and we've shared them with, and when people are thinking about how to build brands on social platforms beyond performance marketing, I think then these become important for us to think about. So yeah, that's broadly what I had to share.
Yeah. No, very interesting set of points, and I think a lot of it was, I think, an offtake as well from, I think, what we heard from Shivanjali. And I think again, one thing which was very starking is that entire probably a moment from celebrities to influencers, and that's also a trend I think we seeing in other markets around India, where there's a lot of focus on Instagram and stuff around the influencers. I had a quick question which was posted that how are some of these trends among probably men? I mean, do you see anything out there on these platforms, maybe around beauty or any other aspect which is there around men, or is it far more, not that there in scale?
No, it was surprising that you asked it. In fact, one of the biggest beauty influencers is a man whom women are watching.
Okay.
He was there on one of the first few slides. So one of the biggest influencers in beauty is a guy who actually tells you how to wear makeup, and then that's happening. Is the trend on this grooming and beauty moving towards men? Of course it is. While the study was specifically more women centered, I wouldn't be surprised if it may not be to the same extent and degree, but certainly it's something that we need to keep track of. And I wouldn't be surprised if in a couple of years we are already there, where men are as involved in even categories like this. But if you move beyond this into other categories like food, what that's manifesting itself may be completely different.
Okay.
So yeah.
No, thanks, Prem. I think it was interesting to hear this interesting couple of points which you made. I think we'll probably just take a small break in the sense of watching consumer trends. We'll move to Anshu now and look at some of the trends from a very different perspective in terms of how have brands and advertisers looked at spends, and what kind of focus have we got on certain category specific details as well. So Anshu, I'll hand it over to you to run through your part of the presentation.
Yes, thank you, Jayesh. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for taking out time on a busy Wednesday. So this television advertising trends is tip of the iceberg, I would say. We have only considered commercial time to share the trends for this year, the data that has been released till date. There are quite a lot of factors that once added in television per se as a media would possibly throw some different trends, which we could cover up in some futuristic 2023 presentation. So we can move for the first slide. To provide a overview on how television has been doing in the last few years, because COVID has been a primary discussion point across all media, and we are all well aware how it has affected every media, not just television. We tried to see how 2019 versus 23 and how each year has been growing. So from 2020, 2021 had a very higher growth rate on TV per se. And this is all, again, I'm repeating, it's a fixed commercial time, that city that we are talking about over here. So the ad volumes actually saw a 27% growth, and it has been stabilized in the last 2 years. But in 2023, we have seen a 4% drop. Now, this is obviously better than what was in 2019. However, if you are looking at actually directly post-COVID years, then it obviously has gone down slightly. We can move on to the other slide. We tried to see which quarters have essentially seen growth or degrowth. And if you see Q2, which showed a 2% growth, both the first quarter and the third quarter are basically showing a degrowth trend. The genres that have essentially helped in this growth are in the subsequent slides. We can move on to the next slide. Yeah. So when you look at a deeper in-depth analysis on what genres work, what did not work, GC, movies and sports have tried to strive a balance across all the genres. We saw a degrowth on news and kids genre, essentially. Now, again, over here, since we are only talking about FCT, there are a lot of elements that come into play on sports as also and on news genre also. So if you consider on-screen advertising, if you consider in-program placements, if you consider within sports advertising, then the percentage growth or degrowth may slightly vary. But at an overall level, the commercial time has indeed reduced for this year. We can move on to the next slide. Now, if we further look into the category advertisers and trends that have come up, everything is showing slight degrowth to a comparison to 2022. However, a point to note over here, which also the earlier presenters have, Shivanjali and Prem, covered, hyperlocal identities or hyperlocal categories that you essentially see have shown a uptick on advertising. They have the funds now, they have the inclination, which pre-COVID was essentially missing. And after COVID, things have changed into making a healthier choice of a lot of lifestyle changes that have happened. And so categories that include retail, makeup, clothing, these are the categories that actually saw a growth. And the other categories that considerably reduced advertising on TV may have chosen a different means of communication to reach their audiences. So we can change the slide to the next one. We close to studied around 500 categories this year, and if you see, the topmost sectors that have grown are auto, personal care and hygiene, which actually relates to the studies done on consumer as well as on the digital media. And BFSI and household products have also seen as a sector a growth over last year. If you specifically look out at the growing categories, then bathing bars have spent 2 times last year on television as the media. Namkeen has grown to 2 times. Energy drink and eye makeup, which is a surprise category, has also shown the growth. The highest growing in these top 10, actually, if you see, is eye makeup. And these categories have started advertising on TV, considering the changes that have happened now. If you see, even the external factors matter when we see ad spends across media. And post-COVID, when there was back to office trends that has started, people have started looking out for official clothing to wear, to look good. And considering how people have been on Instagram, checking out various ways of uplifting their own personal aura, these things matter. And I believe if you merge these kind of databases, these specialized studies along with the media trends, the advertisers and marketers can essentially understand where and how the communication can change, what are the gaps that can be filled, and where is it that they can essentially have a additional mark over their competition, where have the competition not looked as of now, and they can cover it up. We can move to the next slide. To just provide a glimpse on how different genres work, we've taken up only sports advertising as a genre. We can move to the next slide. So what we've done is essentially divided the sports genre into live, related and sports. Live will be everything live. There's no other program included in the live telecast. Related will be all programs around highlights, etc., that have commercial ads. And sports is a complete genre, which includes all programs, highlight, repeat, etc., that have come. So if you check a split, then live has actually experienced an 8% increase in 2023. And the overall sports genre has reflected a 1% growth. But leaving aside the related programs, if we check only the live telecast of sports for this year, and it includes all the sports that have been telecast across television channels, then there is a 8% growth, which is a very positive development. We can move on to the next slide. For 2022, if we index the growth across sports and non-sports programs, then we see that sports programs grew by 5%, while non-sports programs decreased by 2%, which we also saw in the cross-genre comparison. The interesting thing to note over here is that in 2023, we saw close to 140 plus advertisers that have exclusively advertised during sports programs, whereas it was only 111 in 2022. So there have been advertisers and marketers who are considering the target audience that essentially watches these sports programs and communicating about their products and services to these kind of segments. And that's why that growth basically looks very positive for sports versus non-sports programs. We can move on. So in conclusion, TV media has experienced a notable decline in ad revenue since 22. It also essentially reflects the shifting consumer trends. We cannot look at TV in isolation. There has to be a comparison with multimedia, cross-media, other modes of advertising that an advertiser or a marketer or an agency essentially consider. However, in this amidst this decline, there are specific genres that we right now saw, which showed resilience and growth in 2023. And while all overall ad revenues, etc., have faced these challenges, these genres have uplifted TV as a media. And when we go on to 2024, these challenges will possibly have overturned this degrowth, is what we believe in. Thank you.
Yeah. I think again, interesting set of points, Anshu. I think one question which is, come forth is that you'd mentioned about 140 plus brands, focusing on sports per se, a drastic increase which you have seen. Is that focus, I'm sure, 140 plus brands across categories, but do you see some trend there in terms of the kind of brands, which want to get associated with sports? Because sports in our country again is, I think there was a period when there was a certain kind of skew in terms of, kind of people who would watch it. I think a lot of formats coming in that has got democratized. So if you could throw some light on, what kind of brands are really looking forward to this, association on sports.
Yeah, so categories that essentially saw sports, I mean, higher advertising on sports programming. One was e-commerce. We saw gaming as well as retail sector concentrating on sports as a genre, where we've seen a lot of advertisers from this category per se. Then there is a BFSI, which if you see, there are a lot of mutual fund ads. So that category, which has banking, finance, loans, credit cards, etc., that is the subcategory that also saw an uptick. We also saw pan masala category advertising quite a lot on sports vis-a-vis non-sports genres. So these are education institutes were there, but these categories actually overrun the other categories that were also a part of this. So these are few categories that are top of my mind, which actually helped sports genre grow for 2023.
Okay. And any specific, hypothesis on, there was this 27% increase in, endorsements, sudden shift, any hypothesis around that, a sudden offtake, and then you talked about a stabilization there, I think year on year. So around that uplift, any kind of, hypothesis or reasoning around, the sudden increase there?
Yeah, so see, after COVID, I think all media has seen a sudden uptick on advertising. 2021 has seen a growth on almost all media. Digital has spiked up quite admirably because everybody was cooped up at homes, and that was the only mode of communication at that point of time. The major reason why TV, radio, and print as a traditional media could have possibly also seen an uptick will be because after COVID lockdowns ended and people started moving out is when you see categories also refurbishing their stocks. You actually see people moving out and buying things. Till then it was all online and only very, very required advertising that actually took place. So that was a revenge phase of advertising, like we saw revenge travel in the initial years, and now it has stabilized. the very good thing over here and a positive way of looking at it will be that even after this drop, we are still doing better than 2019, and the degrowth is just 4%, which could be from numerous factors. We've got OTT, CTV, etc. in play, discussion of which could happen at a very different forum when we have the time. But presently, for this outlook that we are actually looking at, -4% is not that concerning. And for the next year, when we actually go back and check all the factors, we may possibly see a growth also.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks for sharing all this, all the specific points, Anshu. I think we'll move on to Ashish. I think we spoke about how we're moving towards, in some parts of the category to influencers, and I think Ashish will, throw light on, how celebrity endorsement trends have been, moving on. So over to you, Ashish.
Hey, thanks, Jay, and good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to talk on celebrity trends. So I've been doing the media research for a while now, and I'll talk about two things. One is the celebrity endorsement trends that we've seen across the last couple of years, and some stuff on general media habits, especially on the cord cutting of television, which is nowadays the buzzword. So there are 2 points that I'll cover. The next slide, please. Yeah. So it's no surprise that the celebrity endorsements are seeing a growing trend in India. So if I've just picked up some data from a TAM report where Anshu was kind enough to share some data with me. So what we've seen is from Jan 2021 to Jan 2023, the share of celebrity ads on television. So when I say share, I mean out of the total television. Again, I'm talking of TVC here. The television commercials, the share of ads that had a celebrity in it has gone up by from about 21% in 2021 to 28% in 2023. Again, these are 6-month figures, so roughly a 34% jump. And I also looked upon some other stuff to look at, and Kroll has come up with a report where they have done some kind of celebrity brand valuation. Okay, I would not get into how they have gone into doing the brand valuation. That report is there, anybody can go and see it. But I looked at the valuation of the top 10 celebrities across 2020 and 2022, the 2-year difference. And again, I see a jump of about 34%. So effectively what we are seeing is that, there is a growth that is happening. However, we had Hansa also do a consumer research. So the other 2 numbers that you saw were real numbers of the number of advertisements that are there and the brand valuations. We do a study called Hansa Brand Endorser Study, once every couple of years. And what we have figured out from this is that trends are all about longevity. So if you look at the I just tried and compared the top 15 celebrities across 4 years, 2018 and 2022, and top 10 of those celebrities are the same. Okay, so there was some 5 celebrities who've gone up and down, but top 10 are the same. Of course, the rankings will be different depending upon who's doing well at that point in time. But broadly, if you see, the people who get identified, and again, these numbers are at a national level. If you cut this data by northeast, west, south, you might find different numbers coming up, or by age groups, you will find different celebrities coming up. But broadly, you see, it's about longevity. So there are people who will always be there as in the minds of consumers as the top celebrities. Okay, and these are again typically celebrities who are who can technically fit a whole lot of categories. So their brand imagery is in such a way that it fits a whole lot of categories, and you will see most of these celebrities that are there, which are common, are the ones who are endorsing various kinds of brands or various kinds of categories. Okay, you will also find certain trendy stuff coming in. So for example, an Amir Khan, who's probably not had a release or a hit film for some time now, is not there in 2022, but was there in 2018. Sunny Deol, if probably done today, might find a much larger score coming up, or Allu Arjun, of course, rose to fame during because of that one movie that he did. Similarly, you might find some celebrities who will come and go, but there will be those set of celebrities who will always remain, and that's about longevity. If you look at, go to the next slide, please. If you just compare the same thing here from the Kroll report in terms of who are the celebrities between 2020 and 2022, again you find that 8 out of the 10 celebrities, top 10 celebrities are common. Okay, so there will be there's an Ayushman Khurrana was there in 2020, doesn't feature in 2022. So some of those differences will be there, but by and large, what you find is that it is about longevity, at least when it comes to celebrities, and how do consumers think. So we go to the next slide. We've done some amount of qualitative stuff to figure out in our brand endorser study, to figure out what is it that really people consider when it comes to evaluating celebrities. And these are the 4 or 5 key pointers that that came out. One obviously is recognition. So you need to know the celebrity, because we had I mean, the methodology is such that if I don't know the celebrity, obviously he doesn't fit into my scheme of things. Likability is the other one. Then comes fan following. Okay, this is something which you picked up from outside. Okay, how popular he is on various platforms, he or she is on various platforms. Clutter, does the celebrity do so many endorsements that I'm just I can't make out anything. He's just there all over the place. Perception. Okay, what kind of brand imagery or imagery that the person have. Okay, so when you think of Rahul Dravid, it is something to do with the fact that it is he's rock solid, is like a wall, those kind of perceptions. Okay, and hence that moves on to saying, because of that perception, what is the kind of category fit. Okay, so if you say that Hrithik Roshan, who has a very macho kind of a imagery, he goes on to endorse a Mountain Dew, which has a very similar imagery. So it's a kind of brand fit. However, we've not done brands here; we've done category, because there are so many brands for us to do it in a survey. And the next point was about interest to see. So how many people are really interested in seeing this person as a celebrity endorser? So if you the fact is that when it comes to the data, we ask our clients to look out for these attributes, and these attributes by and large don't change over a period of time. So it's that the celebrities who are there will keep coming in and going out depending upon how they fit in into these attributes. And of course, what price they come at is something for the client to decide when they go about selecting celebrity endorsements. But some of the points here, if you see, I don't know how many of you noticed it, but Ranveer Singh, okay, is one celebrity which we've not really picked up in our study. Okay, Hansa brand study at a total all India level. And when you look at these, and we were checking these things. So there are certain surprises like these when you do go to a consumer. Well, Ranveer Singh is all over the place doing lots of ads. I think he's the #1 in the Kroll report in terms of brand valuation. But when it comes to the consumers, they probably see it as, while he's very well recognized and he's got a lot of fan following, but the likability will not be universal. So what we have found is that some of those likabilities changed by so India, while we say India is becoming one, and we find that a lot of South Indian movies are finding traction in the north, and a lot of Hindi movies are finding traction in the south. It will be it will take some while before the celebrities do this kind of transcending. So I don't have the numbers right now at hand, but I know that Ranveer Singh has not performed that well when it comes to South. Again, in terms of his perception, he's seen as somebody who's he gets more traction with the younger audiences. The older audiences are not so. They see him as more of a frivolous guy who's more happy-go-lucky, not so serious. So obviously these are the kind of things, something which we keep tracking, and we figured out that these things work, and that's what we keep asking our clients to look at when you go and decide on what which celebrity works and which celebrity doesn't work. The same works for even the social media influencers. So we have covered a few social media influencers in our study, and we figured out that it's very similar. Okay, it depends upon how much I as a person relate to the celebrity that I'm talking about, and whether I believe that he fits the category that he's endorsing, and that really makes an impact. Okay. So that's about brand endorsements. Move on to the next one, please. I'll go on to the next point. I think we are already short on time. This is about cord cutting. For the benefit of people who don't know what's cord cutting, I'll quickly explain what's cord cutting. Cord cutting is about people who are cutting away from the cable and satellite. So whether you get it from a cable operator, or whether you cut off your dish antenna and you watch all your television entertainment or all your entertainment on the web. Okay, so through apps, or through a Wi-Fi on your television set, that doesn't matter, but you're not watching it through a normal cable and satellite connection. Okay, the next slide, please. This is a trend that we are seeing. There is a decline. If you see from 2019 to 2022, we see that is a steady decline. 21 saw a spike. Again, people going back, but again, a lot of them are going back. I mean, I've started cutting cords in 2022, and I'll come to the reasons on the next slide. Next slide, please. So if you see here, there are the possible reasons for this is that there's been a new tariff order that has come in, and the costs have been revised, which some people I think have found it very expensive. They moved on to free TV. Some have reduced the number of channels. Some moved to OTT watching. The other is the growth of OTT platforms. TV content, I mean, I don't know how many of you are aware of, but the highest amount of content that is consumed on OTT is actually catch-up TV. Then you have a lot of free content which is there on TV being offered by the OTT platforms. And there is also a new term that's coming up called the cord nevers, who have never ever subscribed to cable and satellite. So the younger audiences who probably have never been on cable and satellite, they've started their lives, that their lives revolved around their Wi-Fi connections and mobile phones. So those are the guys who consume mostly stuff on OTT. They don't even, I mean, the TV content doesn't even appeal to them much. So these are the kind of people which are possibly the reasons for cord cutting. The next slide. Now, is this really a matter of concern? Well, I don't think so. Matter of concern for the television industry, I don't think so, because people get used to price hikes. So the price hike happened, I think, in February 2023, the last one. While there was a drop, I do believe that the percentage or the rate of drop will not be as much as we go ahead, because people do get used to price hikes. As Indians, we are a very lazy bunch of people. We love to continue doing what we've been doing. So television is still there. Cable and satellite is not going anywhere. OTT platforms also cost a lot of money. So they're not so popular beyond the metros and the market homes. That's also a reality. Most people, if you go down to a tier 2, tier 3 towns, you will not find too many people subscribing to these or watching too much of content on OTT platforms. And cord nevers, like I said earlier, is largely a metro phenomena, a young phenomena. So not something which is a cause of real concern at this point in time, but it did come up as a big concern just after the COVID, and just when this price hikes came into place, where suddenly there was a big drop, like you saw in the chart that I showed. But I don't see that, while that's still a buzzword, I still don't think there's TV is going anywhere. It's here to stay. So I think that's what I had to talk about.
Thanks, Ashish. Thanks for sharing all these inputs again, both on cord and I think the trends we're having on the celebrity front. I think we have run out of time, so I think we'll pass on all the questions which we have to the panelists separately, so that we can get back to the audience, individually on the response towards it. Thanks to the audience for taking out time and being a part of this session, and thanks to all the speakers out here who have taken out valuable time from their day-to-day work and spend time to build this up. We'll be back again in January with a very interesting topic. I think the announcement for that will be done next couple of weeks. Till that time, to all, enjoy the vacations, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Merry
Thank you all.
Christmas.
Same to you. It was a
Merry Christmas,
pleasure
everybody.
being here.
Happy New Year.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.